You won't believe what happened when Officer Marcus Chen pulled up to Lincoln High School that Tuesday afternoon. What started as a routine patrol turned into a moment that would shake an entire community to its core. Stay with me because the phone call that came through his radio 5 minutes later revealed something nobody saw coming. If this story grips you the way it gripped me, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we dive deep into real stories that matter, stories that challenge everything you think you know about justice, prejudice, and redemption. It was 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in September, the kind of day where the heat still clings to the pavement, even though summer's supposed to be over. Officer Marcus Chen had been patrolling the streets of Riverside for 6 years. 6 years of traffic stops, noise complaints, and the occasional domestic dispute. Nothing in his training, nothing in those 6 years, prepared him for what was about to unfold. Lincoln High School sat on the corner of Madison and Fifth, a sprawling brick building that had educated 3 generations of Riverside kids. The final bell had rung 15 minutes ago, and students were flooding out of the doors, their voices carrying across the parking lot in waves of teenage energy and relief. Marcus was driving slowly past the school, his window down, when he saw him. A young black teenager, maybe 16 or 17, standing near the bike racks. The kid was looking around nervously, his hands shoved deep in his hoodie pockets despite the heat. He kept glancing over his shoulder, taking a few steps toward the school, then stopping. Something about his body language set off alarm bells in Marcus's head. The department had briefed them just last week about a string of thefts in the area. School lockers had been broken into, backpacks stolen. The description had been vague, but one detail stuck. Male suspect, approximately 16 to 18 years old, usually wearing dark clothing. Marcus pulled his cruiser to the curb. The teenager noticed immediately. Their eyes met for just a second before the kid looked away, and that's when Marcus saw it. The kid's expression shifted from nervous to something else. Fear. Real, genuine fear. Marcus stepped out of the car. He'd done this 1,000 times. Approach, assess, ask questions, simple procedure. Nothing complicated. "Hey there," Marcus called out, his voice friendly but firm. "Can I talk to you for a second?" The teenager froze. His shoulders tensed up like he'd been hit with a jolt of electricity. "I didn't do anything," he said immediately. His voice cracked slightly, caught between the deeper tones of manhood and the higher pitch of boyhood. "Nobody said you did," Marcus replied, moving closer. "I just want to ask you a few questions. What's your name?" "Jamal. Jamal Washington." The kid's hands came out of his pockets slowly, deliberately, held slightly away from his body. Marcus recognized the movement. This wasn't Jamal's first time being stopped by police. "What are you doing here, Jamal?" "I go to school here." Jamal gestured toward the building behind him. "I was just waiting for my mom to pick me up." Marcus looked around. Most of the other students had already dispersed. The parking lot was nearly empty now, except for a few cars and the yellow school buses pulling away. "School let out 15 minutes ago. Why are you still here?" "My mom's running late. She texted me, said she'd be here soon." Jamal's voice had an edge to it now, frustration mixing with the fear. "Am I not allowed to wait for my ride?" "I'm going to need to see some ID," Marcus said. Standard procedure. He'd asked for ID hundreds of times. "Why?" Jamal's voice rose slightly. "I told you I go to school here. I'm just waiting for my mom." "ID, please." Marcus kept his voice level, but his hand moved instinctively closer to his belt. Not to his weapon, just closer. "Ready." Jamal's jaw clenched. For a moment, Marcus thought the kid might refuse. But then Jamal reached slowly into his back pocket and pulled out a wallet. His hands were shaking slightly as he extracted a school ID card and handed it over. Marcus examined it. Jamal Washington, Jr. The photo showed the same face, maybe with a little less wariness in the eyes. The card looked legitimate. "This just shows you're a student. You got a driver's license? State ID?" "I'm 16. I don't have my license yet." Jamal's voice was tight now, controlled. "That's why my mom has to pick me up." "Where does your mom work?" "Why does that matter?" "Just answer the question, Jamal." She's a nurse at Riverside General. She had to work late. That's why she's running behind. Marcus handed the ID back. Something about this whole interaction felt wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on what. The kid's story checked out. He had a school ID. His explanation made sense. But that nervous energy, that fear in his eyes, it kept nagging at Marcus. "Why are you shaking?" Marcus asked. Jamal looked down at his hands, then back up at Marcus. "Because I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "I'm just asking questions. You're a cop. I'm a black kid standing outside my own school. You tell me why I should be scared." There was no anger in Jamal's voice, just exhaustion, the kind of exhaustion that comes from living the same moment over and over again. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. Guilt? Recognition? He wasn't sure. "Look, there have been thefts in the area. I'm just doing my job." "And I'm just trying to go home," Jamal shot back. A few students who hadn't left yet were starting to notice. Marcus could see them stopping, watching. Some had their phones out. Great. That's all he needed. Another viral video of a cop harassing a teenager. "I'm going to need you to come sit in my car while we sort this out," Marcus said. "Sort what out?" Jamal's voice cracked again. "I showed you my ID. I told you I'm waiting for my mom. What else is there to sort out?" "Just come sit in the car, Jamal. We'll call your mom, verify your story, and then you can go." "Verify my story?" Jamal took a step back. "Man, I don't have to sit in your car. I didn't do anything wrong." Marcus felt the situation slipping. His training kicked in. Control the situation. Don't let it escalate. "Jamal, I'm not asking anymore. I'm telling you, get in the car." "No." Jamal's voice was firm now. "You can't make me get in your car. I know my rights." Marcus moved forward and Jamal moved back. They were dancing now. This terrible dance that Marcus had seen go wrong so many times. He reached for his radio. "This is Unit 47. I need backup at Lincoln High School. I've got a non-compliant subject." "Non-compliant?" Jamal's voice rose. "I'm non-compliant because I won't get in your car for no reason?" The students watching were getting closer now. Marcus could hear their voices, some recording, some calling out. This was spiraling, fast, and then his radio crackled. "Unit 47, this is dispatch. Before you proceed, we have a call from a Mrs. Washington. She says her son Jamal is being detained outside Lincoln High School. Is this correct?" Marcus pressed the button. "That's correct, dispatch." "Unit 47, Mrs. Washington is asking to speak with you. She says she's 2 minutes away. Can you hold your position?" Marcus looked at Jamal. The kid's eyes were wide, a mixture of vindication and fear. "Copy that, dispatch. Holding position." 2 minutes felt like an eternity. Marcus stood there. Jamal stood there. And about 20 students stood there, all of them watching, waiting. Nobody said a word. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic and the occasional chirp of Marcus's radio. A silver Honda Accord pulled into the parking lot, driving faster than it should have. It screeched to a stop about 10 feet away, and a woman jumped out. She was still wearing scrubs, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exhausted and furious, and terrified all at once. "Jamal!" She rushed toward her son, and Marcus instinctively stepped between them. "Ma'am, I need you to stay back." "That's my son," she shouted. "What are you doing to my son?" "Mrs. Washington, I'm Officer Chen. I was just asking your son some questions." "Questions about what? He's standing outside his own school." Her voice was shaking with rage. "He called me 10 minutes ago, said a cop was harassing him. I had to leave work early. I'm a nurse officer. I had patience. But I had to leave because my 16-year-old son was being detained outside his own school for doing absolutely nothing wrong. Ma'am, there have been thefts in the area. I saw your son acting suspiciously and I..." "Suspiciously?" Mrs. Washington's voice could have cut glass. "What exactly was suspicious? Was it the fact that he's black? Was that the suspicious part?" "That's not what I said." "But that's what you meant, isn't it?" She moved closer to Marcus now, her finger pointing at his chest. "My son is a straight-A student. He's in the honors program. He volunteers at the community center. He's never been in trouble a day in his life. but you see him standing outside his own school, and you immediately assume he's a criminal. Marcus felt his face getting hot. I was doing my job. Your job? Mrs. Washington's laugh was bitter. Your job is to protect and serve, officer. Who were you protecting? Who were you serving when you decided to harass my son? Jamal moved to his mother's side. Mom, it's okay. Let's just go. No, baby, it's not okay. She turned back to Marcus. Do you have children, Officer Chen? The question caught Marcus off guard. Yes, a daughter. She's 8. Then you tell me, how would you feel if, 8 years from now, your daughter was standing outside her own school and someone assumed she was a criminal because of how she looked? How would that make you feel? Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out, because the answer was obvious. It would destroy him. Mrs. Washington's voice softened slightly, but the steel remained. I have to have conversations with my son that you'll never have to have with your daughter. I have to teach him how to act when he's stopped by police. Keep your hands visible. Don't make sudden movements. Be polite even when you're being disrespected. Yes, sir. No, sir. Whatever you say, sir. Because if he shows even a hint of attitude or defiance, it could cost him his life. Do you understand that? Every time he walks out that door, I have to worry that he might not come back. Not because he's doing anything wrong, but because someone like you might see him and decide he's a threat. The students were silent now. Marcus could feel their eyes on him. Judge and jury, all of them. He wanted to defend himself, to explain that he was just following procedure, that he had legitimate concerns. But the words felt hollow before he even spoke them. His radio crackled again. Unit 47, this is dispatch. We have additional information. The suspect in the school thefts was apprehended this morning. Caucasian male, 22 years old, already in custody. Did you copy that? Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Copy that, dispatch. Mrs. Washington's eyes narrowed. What did they just say? Marcus took a deep breath. They said the suspect in the thefts was already caught. This morning. The silence that followed was deafening. Jamal looked at his mother. Mrs. Washington looked at Marcus. And Marcus looked at the ground because he couldn't bear to meet anyone's eyes. So you stopped my son? Mrs. Washington said slowly, each word deliberate. Even though the person you were looking for was already in custody. I didn't know that when But even if you didn't know, even if that person was still out there, what made you think it was Jamal? What was it about my son, standing outside his own school, that screamed criminal to you? Marcus had no answer. Or rather, he had an answer, but it was one he didn't want to say out loud, because the truth was uncomfortable. The truth was that he'd seen a young black teenager in a hoodie acting nervous, and his brain had made a leap. A leap based on years of implicit bias, of statistics he'd heard, of stereotypes he'd absorbed without even realizing it. I made a mistake, Marcus said quietly. A mistake? Mrs. Washington's voice rose again. A mistake is adding wrong in your checkbook, officer. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. This is racial profiling. This is the systemic harassment that black families have been dealing with for generations. This is why we can't breathe. And you want to call it a mistake? I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate even as Marcus said them. You're sorry. Mrs. Washington shook her head. Jamal, get in the car. Jamal didn't move immediately. He was looking at Marcus with an expression that Marcus couldn't quite read. Not anger exactly. Something sadder. Disappointment maybe. Or resignation. Officer Chen, Jamal said quietly, you seem like a nice guy. You didn't call me names. You didn't get physical. You were just doing your job. Right? But that's the problem. Your job right now means that people who look like me can't even stand outside our own schools without being treated like criminals. And until that changes, it doesn't matter how nice you are or how polite you are, the system is broken. With that, Jamal turned and walked to his mother's car. Mrs. Washington followed, but before she got in, she turned back to Marcus one more time. I'm filing a complaint, she said. Not because I think it'll change anything, Not because I believe the department will actually hold you accountable, but because my son needs to know that we don't just accept this, we fight back. Even when it feels hopeless, we fight back. She got in the car and drove away. The students began to disperse, some of them still filming, most of them shaking their heads. Marcus stood there in the parking lot, feeling like the worst person in the world. His radio crackled again. Unit 47, return to station for debriefing. Marcus got back in his car. His hands were shaking as he gripped the steering wheel. 6 years on the force. 6 years of thinking he was one of the good ones. 6 years of telling himself that he treated everyone fairly, that he didn't see color, that he judged people by their actions, not their appearance. And in one afternoon, all of those comfortable lies had been stripped away. The drive back to the station felt longer than usual. Marcus kept replaying the encounter in his mind. What could he have done differently? He could have just driven past. Could have given Jamal a wave and kept going. Could have stopped and asked if he needed help instead of approaching with suspicion. Could have believed him immediately when he showed his school ID instead of demanding more proof. Could have, should have, would have. At the station, Captain Rodriguez was waiting for him in her office. She was a 45-year-old Puerto Rican woman who'd worked her way up from beat cop to captain over 20 years. She'd seen everything, and her expression now suggested she wasn't pleased about what she was about to see next. "Sit down, Chen," she said. Marcus sat. Rodriguez pulled up her computer and turned the screen toward him. It was a video, already uploaded to social media. The title read, "Cop Racially Profiles Teen Outside School." It had been posted 20 minutes ago. It already had 50,000 views. Marcus watched himself on the screen, watched himself approach Jamal with suspicion written all over his face, watched himself demand ID, watched himself order Jamal to get in the car. From this angle, with this framing, it was impossible to see anything other than what it was, a cop harassing an innocent kid. "The good news," Rodriguez said, "is that Mrs. Washington hasn't gone to the media yet. The bad news is that this video is everywhere, and it's only a matter of time before they connect it to you and to this department." "What happens now?" Marcus asked. Now you get put on desk duty while we investigate. Now I have to do damage control. Now I have to explain to the mayor why one of my officers detained a straight-A student outside his own school when the suspect he was supposedly looking for was already in custody." Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. "What were you thinking, Chen?" "I thought I was doing my job. Your job is to protect and serve, not to profile and harass." Rodriguez's voice was sharp. "You're smarter than this, Marcus. I know you are. So what happened out there?" Marcus thought about how to answer. He could make excuses, could talk about the briefing, about the thefts, about Jamal's nervous behavior. But all of those excuses rang hollow now. "I saw what I expected to see," Marcus admitted. "I saw a black kid in a hoodie acting nervous, and I made assumptions. I didn't even realize I was doing it until it was too late." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "At least you're honest about it. That's more than I get from most officers in this situation." She sighed. "Look, Marcus, you're not a bad cop. You've got a good record. No excessive force complaints. No racist remarks. By all accounts, you're decent at your job. But that's not enough anymore. Not when we have officers across the country killing unarmed black men. Not when every interaction like yours has the potential to escalate into something deadly. We have to be better. You have to be better." "I know." "Do you?" Rodriguez leaned forward. "Because knowing it and doing it are two different things. You can sit in diversity training until you're blue in the face. But if you don't actually examine your own biases, if you don't actually question your own assumptions, nothing changes." Marcus nodded. "What do I do?" "First, you're going to sit through another round of implicit bias training. Second, you're going to write a formal apology to Jamal Washington and his mother. Third, you're going to do some serious self-reflection about whether this is really the kind of cop you want to be. And if Mrs. Washington's complaint goes further," Rodriguez shrugged, "then we deal with it. The union will have your back legally, but Marcus, between you and me, you messed up. If there are consequences, you'll have to accept them." Marcus left Rodriguez's office feeling like he'd been hollowed out. He sat at his desk, staring at a blank Word document, trying to figure out how to apologize for something that felt so much bigger than a single incident. "Dear Mrs. Washington and Jamal," he typed, then deleted it. Too formal. "I'm sorry for what happened today," he tried. But that wasn't enough either. How do you apologize for centuries of systemic racism? How do you apologize for being part of a system that sees black bodies as threats? How do you apologize for your own blindness? Marcus closed the document. The apology would have to wait. Right now, he needed to think. He drove home in silence. His wife Jennifer was in the kitchen making dinner when he walked in. Their daughter Emma was at the table doing homework. "Daddy!" Emma jumped up and ran to him. Marcus scooped her up, holding her tight. She was 8 years old. 8 years old, and she trusted that the world was a safe place because she'd never experienced anything to make her think otherwise. "Hey, sweetie," Marcus said, setting her down. "How was school?" "Good. We learned about the solar system. Did you know that Jupiter has 67 moons?" "I did not know that." Emma ran back to her homework. Jennifer looked at Marcus and immediately knew something was wrong. "What happened?" Marcus told her. "Everything. The stop, the confrontation, the video, Mrs. Washington's words, Rodriguez's disappointment." Jennifer listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." Jennifer came closer and took his hands. "You're going to learn from this. You're going to be better." "But what if I can't? What if I'm so conditioned by the system that I can't see past my own biases?" "Then you keep trying. You keep questioning yourself. You keep listening to people like Mrs. Washington when they tell you about their experiences." Jennifer squeezed his hands. "Marcus, you're not a bad person, but you were part of a bad system today. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Jamal's face, that exhaustion in his eyes, that resignation. Like this was just another day, another cop, another injustice to add to the pile. At 2 a.m., Marcus got up and went to his computer. He started researching. He read articles about racial profiling, about implicit bias, about the school-to-prison pipeline, about police brutality, about the countless black men and women and children who'd been killed by police officers who thought they were doing their jobs. He read about Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy shot by police for playing with a toy gun, about Philando Castile, killed during a traffic stop while reaching for his license, about Breonna Taylor, shot in her own home, about George Floyd, murdered over a suspected counterfeit $20 bill, and he read the statistics. Black Americans are nearly 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white Americans. Black drivers are more likely to be pulled over. Black students are more likely to be suspended or expelled. The list went on, an overwhelming tsunami of evidence that the system was broken. At 4 a.m., Marcus started writing his apology letter. This time, the words came easier. "Dear Mrs. Washington and Jamal, I'm writing to apologize for my actions on Tuesday afternoon. I want to start by saying that there is no excuse for what I did. I racially profiled your son. I saw a black teenager and made assumptions based on nothing more than the color of his skin. I treated him like a criminal when he was simply waiting for his mother outside his own school. I've spent the last 2 days trying to understand how I let this happen. The easy answer would be to blame my training, or the system, or the circumstances. But the truth is harder to face. I let it happen because I didn't examine my own biases. I didn't question my own assumptions. I told myself I was just doing my job. But my job should never include harassing innocent people. Mrs. Washington, you asked me how I would feel if my daughter was treated the way I treated Jamal. The answer is that I would be devastated. I would be angry and scared and heartbroken. And the fact that I didn't consider that perspective until you forced me to speak to my own failings as a human being and as a police officer. Jamal, you said something to me that I can't stop thinking about. You said the system is broken. You're right. And I was part of that broken system on Tuesday. I can't undo what happened, but I can promise you that I'm working to be better. I'm educating myself. I'm examining my biases. I'm questioning my assumptions. And I'm committed to making sure that no other kid has to go through what you went through. I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm not sure I'd forgive me if I were in your position, but I wanted you to know that your words, Mrs. Washington's words, they changed something in me. They forced me to see what I'd been refusing to see. And for that, I'm grateful, even though I'm ashamed it took this incident to open my eyes. I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Officer Marcus Chen. Marcus read it over 3 times, then sent it to Rodriguez before he could second-guess himself. Then he went back to reading, determined to spend the rest of the night learning what he should have learned years ago. The next day, Rodriguez called him into her office again. I forwarded your letter to Mrs. Washington, she said. I also want to talk to you about something else. What's that? The department is launching a new community outreach program. We're partnering with local schools to build better relationships between police and students. I want you to be part of it. Marcus was surprised. You still trust me to work with kids after what happened? I trust that you learn from your mistake, Rodriguez said. And frankly, we need officers who've actually confronted their own biases. Officers who understand how their actions impact the community. Officers who are willing to do better. What would I be doing? Visiting schools, talking to students, listening to their concerns, building trust. Rodriguez leaned back. It won't be easy. A lot of these kids have had negative experiences with police. They're going to push back. They're going to challenge you. But if you're serious about being better, this is how you start. Marcus thought about it. Part of him wanted to say no. It would be uncomfortable, humiliating even. But another part of him, the part that had stayed up all night reading about the pain his actions had caused, knew this was necessary. I'll do it, he said. Over the next few weeks, Marcus started visiting schools. He went to classrooms and listened as students shared their experiences with police. Some of the stories made his blood boil. Officers using excessive force, officers planting evidence, officers treating kids like criminals for minor infractions or no infractions at all. But Marcus listened. He didn't make excuses. He didn't defend bad cops. He just listened. At one school, a 14-year-old girl named Keisha raised her hand. Why should we trust you? She asked. You're a cop. Cops have been hurting people who look like us for years. What makes you different? Marcus thought about how to answer. He could have talked about his record, about his years of service, about his good intentions, but none of that mattered to Keisha or to the other students staring at him with a mixture of skepticism and hostility. Honestly, Marcus said, I'm not sure I am different. A few weeks ago, I racially profiled a teenager outside his school. I assumed he was a criminal because he was black and wearing a hoodie. I was wrong. Completely wrong. And that kid, Jamal, he's probably sitting in a classroom a lot like this one right now, remembering how a cop made him feel like a criminal in front of his peers. The room was silent. Marcus continued. I can't tell you I'm different because I'm still figuring that out myself. What I can tell you is that I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to examine my own biases. I'm trying to listen to people like you when you tell me about your experiences. And I'm trying to use whatever influence I have to make the system better. Keisha wasn't satisfied. But what about all the other cops who aren't trying? What about the cops who don't care that they're hurting us? You're right to be angry about that, Marcus said. I'm angry about it too. There are officers who abuse their power. There are officers who are racist. There are officers who never should have been given a badge in the first place, and the system protects them far too often. I can't fix all of that by myself, but I can start by fixing myself, and I can work to hold other officers accountable when they mess up. After the presentation, Keisha came up to Marcus. My cousin was killed by a cop 3 years ago, she said quietly. He was 17. He had his hands up and they shot him anyway. They said he matched the description of a suspect. He was just walking home from work. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. I'm so sorry. Are you, though? Keisha's eyes were hard. Or are you just sorry you got caught? It was a fair question, one Marcus had asked himself repeatedly over the past few weeks. I'm sorry for what happened to your cousin, Marcus said, and I'm sorry for what I did to Jamal. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. I was wrong. I know that now. I should have known it before, but I was blind, and I'm trying to open my eyes. Keisha studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slightly and walked away. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even acceptance. But it was acknowledgement, and for now that was enough. 2 months after the incident, Marcus got a call from Mrs. Washington. His heart started racing as soon as he saw the name on his phone. "Officer Chen," she said when he answered. Her voice was neutral, giving nothing away. "Mrs. Washington, I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I got your letter. I meant every word of it. I believe you did." There was a pause. "Jamal and I have been talking about what happened, about what it means, about how to move forward." Marcus waited. "Jamal wants to do something," Mrs. Washington continued. "He's been researching police reform, criminal justice reform. He's thinking about studying law when he goes to college. He wants to change the system from the inside." "That's amazing," Marcus said, and he meant it. "He asked me if he could meet with you," Mrs. Washington said. "He has questions about how the police department works, about what changes need to be made, about how someone like him could make a difference." Marcus was stunned. "He wants to meet with me? After what I did?" "Don't flatter yourself, Officer Chen. This isn't about forgiving you. This is about Jamal taking what happened and turning it into something constructive. Are you willing to meet with him or not?" "Of course, absolutely. Whenever works for him." They set up a meeting for the following Saturday at a coffee shop downtown. Marcus arrived early, nervous in a way he hadn't been since his first day on the force. When Jamal walked in with his mother, Marcus stood up immediately. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said. Jamal nodded. Up close, without the fear and adrenaline of their first encounter, Marcus could see how young he really was. Still just a kid trying to figure out the world. They sat down. Mrs. Washington ordered coffee. Marcus did the same. Jamal got hot chocolate, which somehow made Marcus's chest ache. This was a kid who still drank hot chocolate, and Marcus had treated him like a hardened criminal. "So," Jamal said after a moment of awkward silence, "I want to understand how things work. Like, why did you stop me that day? Walk me through your thought process." Marcus took a breath. This was going to be uncomfortable, but Jamal deserved the truth. "I saw you standing by the bike racks looking nervous. There had been thefts in the area, and I made a series of assumptions based on very little information. I assumed your nervousness meant guilt. I assumed a black teenager in a hoodie fit the profile of a thief. I assumed you were lying when you said you were waiting for your mom. But the person doing the thefts was white," Jamal pointed out, "and he was already in custody." "I know. I didn't know that at the time, but it wouldn't have mattered. Because even if he hadn't been caught yet, I never should have assumed it was you. The description was vague. It could have been anyone. But I saw you and my brain made that leap." "Why?" Jamal pressed. "What was it about me specifically?" Marcus wanted to look away but forced himself to maintain eye contact. "Your skin color, your clothing, your age. All of these things that have nothing to do with criminal behavior, but that I'd been conditioned to associate with it." "Conditioned by what?" "By media portrayals of black people. By statistics that are presented without context. By a culture that teaches white people to fear black people. By a police force that disproportionately targets black communities." Marcus paused. "By my own failure to question those things." Jamal nodded slowly. "Okay, so here's what I don't get. If you know all this now, if you can see how the system is broken, why stay in it? Why not quit?" It was a question Marcus had asked himself many times over the past 2 months. Because quitting doesn't fix anything. If everyone who wants to make the system better leaves, then we're just left with the officers who don't care about change. I can do more good from inside trying to reform things than I can from outside complaining about them. "But can you, though?" Jamal leaned forward. "Can one cop really make a difference when the whole system is designed to protect bad cops and punish good ones?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "Maybe not, but I have to try, because the alternative is accepting that nothing will ever change, and I can't accept that." They talked for over an hour. Jamal asked about use of force policies, about body cameras, about civilian oversight boards, about qualified immunity, about the police union. He took notes on everything, his pen flying across his notebook. Mrs. Washington mostly listened, occasionally adding her own questions or perspectives. Marcus could see where Jamal got his intelligence and determination. Finally, Jamal closed his notebook. "One more question," he said. "If you could change one thing about policing tomorrow, what would it be?" Marcus thought carefully. "I'd change how we train officers. Right now, so much of our training is about viewing every situation as a potential threat. We're taught to be warriors, to be ready for combat at all times. But the reality is that most of what we do isn't combat. It's community service. It's de-escalation. It's building relationships. If we trained officers to see themselves as guardians instead of warriors, I think a lot of these incidents would never happen." Jamal nodded. "That's good. I'm going to use that." He stood up and Marcus and Mrs. Washington followed. "Thank you for meeting with me, Officer Chen. Thank you for giving me the chance." Jamal hesitated, then held out his hand. Marcus shook it, feeling both honored and unworthy of the gesture. As they were leaving, Mrs. Washington hung back. "He's doing okay," she said quietly. "Therapy is helping, but he's different now, more cautious, less trusting. You did that." Marcus nodded. "I know. I'm sorry." "I know you are." She looked at him steadily. "But sorry doesn't undo trauma, Officer Chen. Sorry doesn't give him back his innocence. The best thing you can do now is make sure what happened to Jamal doesn't happen to someone else." "I will, I promise." "Don't promise me," Mrs. Washington said. "Promise every black mother in this city who has to worry every time her child leaves the house." With that, she walked away. Marcus stood in the coffee shop for a long time after they left. Then he went back to the station. He had work to do. Over the next year, Marcus became one of the loudest advocates for police reform in the department. He pushed for better training, for stricter accountability, for community oversight. He wasn't always popular with his fellow officers. Some called him a traitor. Others said he was virtue signaling. But enough officers, the ones who actually wanted to serve their communities, supported him. Rodriguez promoted him to a training position. Marcus redesigned the curriculum to focus more on de-escalation, implicit bias, and community relations. He brought in speakers from communities of color to talk about their experiences with police. He showed videos of police interactions gone wrong and facilitated discussions about what could have been done differently. It wasn't enough. Marcus knew it wasn't enough. One department in one city couldn't fix a problem that was national in scope. But it was something. It was a start. 3 years after that Tuesday afternoon, outside Lincoln High School, Marcus got an invitation in the mail. It was to Jamal Washington's high school graduation. He almost didn't go. It felt presumptuous to think his presence would be welcome. But something made him attend. He sat in the back of the auditorium and watched as Jamal walked across the stage to receive his diploma. The kid who'd been so scared that day was now standing tall, confident, ready to take on the world. When Jamal's name was called, the announcement mentioned that he'd be attending Howard University in the fall on a full scholarship, planning to study criminal justice and law. After the ceremony, Marcus was getting ready to leave when he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around to find Jamal standing there in his cap and gown. "Officer Chen," Jamal said, "I didn't think you'd come. I almost didn't. I wasn't sure you'd want me here. My mom told me you were coming. She saw you in the back." Jamal smiled slightly. "Thanks for being here, and thanks for all the work you've been doing. You heard about that? I've been keeping tabs, the new training program, the Community Oversight Board, the changes to use of force policy. You've been busy." "Just trying to make good on my promise," Marcus said. "Well, keep it up, because when I finish law school, I'm coming back here, and I'm going to hold you accountable." Jamal's smile widened. "But for now, I wanted to say thank you. What happened that day was terrible, but it also woke me up. It showed me what I want to do with my life. So in a weird way, I guess I should be grateful." "You shouldn't have to be grateful for being racially profiled," Marcus said. "No, I shouldn't. But I can choose to take something good from a bad situation. That's my choice, not yours." Jamal extended his hand again. "Keep fighting the good fight, Officer Chen." Marcus shook his hand. "You too, Jamal. You're going to do amazing things." As Marcus watched Jamal walk back to his family, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real, genuine hope that things could get better, that people could change, that systems could be reformed. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, there would be resistance, there would be more Jamals, more encounters gone wrong, more lives damaged by a broken system. But there would also be people like Jamal who refused to give up, people like Mrs. Washington who demanded accountability, people like Rodriguez who supported reform from within, and maybe, just maybe, people like Marcus who could look at their own mistakes and choose to be better. The work wasn't done. It would never be done. But it was happening. And that was enough to keep going. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about justice, accountability, and the power of change, then don't just watch from the sidelines. Share this story. Talk about it with your friends and family. Educate yourself about police reform. And most importantly, listen to the voices of people who've been harmed by the system. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that challenge, inspire, and demand that we be better. Because change doesn't happen in silence. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. The call that came in that day changed everything for Officer Chen in Jamal, Washington. Let it change something in you too.